Halo Infinite is a game I have played, and right now I'm going to give you a little review with no story spoilers. I'm also not going to talk about the current situation with the multiplayer microtransaction nightmare, etc, etc. We're solely going to focus on the campaign, the world, and the gameplay. So this is Halo's big leap into the latest AAA gaming trend of making everything happen in an open world scenario. But upon playing the game, I quickly realised that the open world aspect was more or less an addition to the standard linear Halo gameplay that we know and love. The story missions mostly take place in structured and linear environments that are dotted around the open world map. You really just need to use the map to get from mission to mission. Of course, I'm just talking about the story missions. The open world is full of side missions, bases, and objectives that can either be completed amongst the story, after the story, or even completely ignored. You will get some upgrades, of course, by doing the various side activities, each contributing to the game's Valor rank, which is an XP-based system for unlocking guns and equipment at the various bases scattered through the world. It's a fine system. It's not groundbreaking, but it's pretty fun. I enjoyed it. I had a good time capturing one or two of them. So let's discuss the low points. There aren't many, but the ones that stuck out did have a bit of an impact. Firstly, the enemies. I found, even playing on normal, that it was easy to get overwhelmed by the sheer number of enemies that spawn throughout the missions. Not only that, but it felt like the enemies' damage was a bit too high at times for the amount of them in the fight, mainly the snipers. There were a few times where I simply couldn't find safe cover from the snipers because there was one on each and every available spot. They also shoot twice, quickly, so you're getting two shot each time by each of them. It was just a bit overwhelming. This also played into my next negative, which was the permanent aggro state the enemies are in. Once they see you, you can't get to a safe distance to recoup. They're always on your tail, and they move a bit too fast, especially the running melee brutes and the hunters. Also, I've always treated hunters as the co-op enemy, if you will. One player distracts them, the other shoots the vulnerable spot on their backs. That's always how I've played, but seeing as 343 decided the latest entry in one of the most iconic co-op game series ever wasn't having co-op at launch for whatever condescending reason they put out this week, hunter fights sucked, even on normal. They run fast, they guard well, they're constantly aggroed on you, so they're always facing you. Hitting their weak points was just not fun or easy. I did get them down eventually, but I did not enjoy my time doing it. They were just not fun encounters. I've always done them in co-op and enjoyed that. So yeah. The enemy speed issue was also annoyingly detrimental to my enjoyment of one of the game's boss fights, but I'm not talking spoilers here, so that's all I'll say about that. And to be brief, there was also a boss fight that was more a case of destroy waves of enemies with all the aforementioned annoyances, while the actual boss isn't that much of an issue at all, which wasn't very great or really inspired. Lastly, for the negatives, I found trying to equip the correct grenade or equipment was a clunky, unnecessary experience. I played on controller, and instead of just pressing right or left on the D-pad however many times to cycle through the items, I had to press one direction, then select the item that was assigned to each of the four directions after that. This meant remembering each item and grenade's position, and also remembering which of the two left and rights was grenade or equipment. 99% of the time you'll find you'll be keeping the grappling hook equipped, but when a cloaked elite is racing towards you with a sword and you need the threat sensor, it's far from ideal, and got me into a bit of bother here and there trying to select it, trying to remember the buttons, and that shouldn't really be a thing. I think that's a pretty big oversight. Okay, now that it sounds like I hated my time playing the game, let's talk about the positives. The world, for one, is beautiful, as are the graphics, the art direction, the environments, everything. Visually, it's incredible. I found myself just stopping and looking around quite a lot at the world, especially up in high points. The biome in the game is very nice, and although it was implied that there would be various biomes, this one had enough in it to keep me visually entertained throughout. The map has all kinds of hidden Easter eggs and fun spots. I climbed to what I assume was the highest peak in the game and found some cool stuff up there. Then not too far below there was a hammer chieftain quietly sitting. He got very annoyed at me when I tried to hijack his ghost and sent me packing with one massive hammer strike, which gave me a bit of a fright, and, you know, a bit of a laugh as well. Stuff like that's really cool. I do enjoy that sort of thing. There are also various upgrades scattered throughout the map, and a lot of them having lore and some cool visual stuff attached to them really gave the world a feeling of life. It really felt like it was alive. It looked like there had been firefights that had just happened moments before you arrive, and the remains of soldiers and Spartans and enemies is all there, as well as like wreckages and stuff like that, still smouldering, still on fire, and there was all sorts of stuff scattered throughout those little sections, which I loved exploring. You also have these armor lockers throughout the map, but I'm sure as anyone up to date with Halo already knows, these armor lockers contain no actual armor. Instead, they contain armor coatings and trinkets, emblems, I think that's about it, for your multiplayer character. But as we're not going to go into that side of the game, I'll just say that they really dropped the ball with those and stopped any desire I have for finding them all immediately. But if there was better stuff in them, I would have put that as a huge positive, because I love collecting things out in the wild. Story-wise, well, remaining spoiler-free, I'll say I really enjoyed the story as it played out. The supporting cast were fun enough to be a good foil for Master Chief's iconic stoic persona, and the enemy characters were also pretty well fleshed out, but I've been told that playing Halo Wars 2 is pretty important if you want the full story as to why you're fighting these enemies and why they're so upset about things. I personally didn't play Halo Wars 2, so I was a bit in the dark, but I picked it up as I went along and got a rough understanding of it. The story missions I also really enjoyed. They were nicely paced and didn't feel so drawn out like previous installments in the franchise. Having just replayed through the original trilogy, I was glad the levels weren't just waves upon waves upon waves of enemies, outside of maybe one or two mission fights, but it was a lot less than what I was used to in previous Halo games, so that was a big positive. I also really enjoyed the gunplay. Shooting feels crisp and satisfying, and the use of the grappling hook as both an offensive and defensive weapon really made for some pretty awesome plays throughout. It's a lot of fun, and it's the solution to a lot of problems. I love that. Just, what do I do? Grappling hook. Fantastic. The weapon variety and selection during missions is nice as well, and playing on normal, there were only maybe one or two times where I felt like I was running dry of ammo or a suitable weapon, but your mileage may vary on that depending on the difficulty and playstyle, of course, but I found there was always going to be at least a gun that was going to get me through that area at each corner and each turn, but there wasn't too many, so it was a nice balance. I think they really did get that right. Now, some final thoughts. As a big fan of Halo, I really enjoyed the campaign, story-wise and gameplay-wise, but I don't see myself running it again anytime soon, at least not before co-op happens. I may still venture out into the open world, which you can do after completing the story, and just go and play around in the engine, which is really enjoyable. And there's still things to do and stuff like that, side missions and stuff, and there's even things I've not even seen yet out in the open world. It is quite large. But I'd also really like a bit of enemy balance patched in. Most of the negatives I spoke about here regarding the enemies are things that can be tweaked and adjusted along the way, and hopefully enough feedback is given from various people to make that happen. And if you're looking to collect achievements or skulls, I should warn you that in the game's current state, you cannot replay story missions. So if you want to go back and get achievements or go and get skulls, you have to start a complete fresh campaign playthrough. I know, I don't get it. I'm not supposed to get it, but yeah, that's the way it is right now. Anyway, I would also have loved to have met some ODSTs out in the wild, as they are my favourite thing in the Haloverse. But I'll continue to hope that we see some later on through this game's life cycle. But the characters you do meet are enough to satisfy people looking for interesting evolutions to the game's lore and seemingly ongoing story that this seemingly is the first chapter of. So that's it. Do I think you should play this game? Absolutely. It's Halo. Regardless of any hitches or pitfalls along the way, it's still quintessential Halo at its core, which for years and years now has always delivered a fun experience. If you're not in a rush though and want to wait for co-op, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more with a fire team instead of solo, but I've always enjoyed Halo with friends instead of playing on my own. So if I was to score this out of 10, right now I would say maybe 7 out of 10. Points get deducted for the enemies, the user interface, and the lack of meaningful armor and the armor lockers. Those are just things that really stuck out for me. But yeah, 7 out of 10, that's still really high. I really did enjoy this. I think once they patch in a balance, if they do, I hope they do, if they balance it out, maybe get that co-op happening sooner rather than later, this will become a really solid entry in the franchise, and I'm really excited to see where it goes next. I know they're saying they're going to be supporting the Infinite story and multiplayer for years and years, so I'm excited to see where we go from here, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So that's it, guys. What did you think of Halo if you have finished the campaign? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I thank you for watching this little review. It's not going to be perfect. It is all my opinion, and I play on normal. I don't play on heroic or anything like that. That's my lane, and I stay in it. So if you're looking for a normal little review, I hope this answered any questions you may have had. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.